Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Survivor series of hashtag Every Role Matters Roundtable. My name is Fenway Jones and I am the founder of Jasper's Game Day, and I will be your host for this episode. We are here to discuss with Jack Berkenstock and Shawn Banerjee. Today we will be discussing the power of using role-playing games in suicide prevention. So, Shawn, if I could have you introduce yourself first.
Yeah, of course. So, as Fenway mentioned, I'm Shawn Banerjee. My pronouns are they, them. I am a gamer. I'm a DM. I'm an event organizer. I'm an editor for all things written, I suppose. And I am a survivor.
Hi, I'm Jack Berkenstock Jr. I'm a master's level therapist. Been in the human services field for about 24 years. I've worked with pre-adolescent and adolescent males in adjudicated youth settings for co-occurring mental health disorder, as well as I've worked for about 20 years with persons with sexually problematic behaviors, either victim or perpetrator. And for the last 11 years, I was one of the founders of, and I'm currently executive director of the Bodhana Group, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're based in York, Pennsylvania, and we provide direct services using role-playing games and tabletop board games for skill building and therapy, as well as providing training and consultation for professionals and companies who want to use that type of modality. So I've worked with kids all the way up to adults with disability and folks who are neurotypical. My preferred pronouns are he, him.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for being here. I am super duper excited to jump right into this. So my first question is just to kind of start the discussion. Shawn, could you kind of tell your story and regarding your mental health and gaming and how roleplay kind of helped you deal with your thoughts?
Yeah, of course. So my story. My story begins in 1987 with my dad coming home from a. No, I'm kidding. So when I hit teenagerhood, I developed severe depression and anxiety, and that went undiagnosed for quite some time. And when I was 17, I had recently quit drinking. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I did it with no program and no support system, which was wise. No, it was not wise. Don't do that. And about 6 months later, I tried to take my own life. It did not work, thankfully, and I've continued on to have a amazing life and continue to have an amazing life. So I'm very happy it didn't take. The next decade or so, up until now, that makes me sound like I'm 27. I'm not. The next decade and a half, I've lived with depression and anxiety and suicidal ideations, and have not self-harmed or tried to act on it since then. And a big part of that has been role-playing games and the role-playing game community, and the support I found there, as well as the creative and emotional outlet. So.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I am very glad to have you here too. So that's, thank you for coming here and telling your story. Jack, so kind of following that up, how have you seen role-playing games and RPGs and role-playing in general to help others? Is Shawn's experience with that something that is common?
Yeah, I mean, first off, also, so, Shawn is not the only person. I also have some co-occurring mental health disorders myself. I have severe bipolar and, well, I guess what used to be called bipolar used to be called manic depression, depending on what you want to do it. Also, very severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Struggle with anxiety and depression throughout my life as well. I've kind of glommed onto mindfulness meditation as one of my solutions after years of pharmaceuticals. But no, the experience of mental health through gaming, I mean, one of the first foremost benefits that we see a lot, especially with folks who are either dealing with anxiety or dealing with depression, is something that, you kind of touched on when you were talking, Shawn, is the whole idea of the social support network. Because, a lot of times, we have this culture within our society that we look upon mental health as a weakness, or in some way a personality failing, or some way that there's something quote unquote wrong with you. Well, we know within at least the mental health community, and we're trying to get the message out there, that it's just there's something different with you, and it's brain chemistry. So I kind of liken a lot of these kind of discussions to, you just sometimes got to ride the wave, like for certain days are rougher than others, certain days are better than others. So I think gaming provides not only that escape, but it also provides that inherent social structure, because you're doing something with other people, and if the hobby directs you towards that social structure, it builds a natural support. So it doesn't feel, and I'm not being judgmental when I say this, but it doesn't feel as artificial as a support group, because with a support group, you run the risk of, there's a part of you that might be going, and I don't know if this is your experience, if you've ever had that kind of thing, the whole like, oh, we're going to talk about this again, can we talk about something else, like every week. I mean, and I know it's a support group and that's part of the structure, right? But one of the oddities about that experience is the more you talk about it, the more you become enmeshed in it. So having a hobby, and we talk about this not only for, mental health, but also for people with addictions. It's not necessarily going to cure an addiction, but now you're hanging out with people in a context that does not involve using and does not involve substance use. So even that replacement of the social network adds a layer of safety, security, protection, but also alternative ways to think, and to engage.
Absolutely. Um, Going off of that, and Shawn, you previously mentioned the gaming community. Have the recent years, has your mental health been better due to the community of gaming and the social aspect of gaming and role playing?
Yeah, of course. Imagine if I was just like, no.
Well, that was a cozy 10 minutes. All right. Yeah. So
No, the gaming community, I discovered tabletop role-playing games. I played a little bit in high school, but really in college. And then 5 years ago or so, I moved to Atlanta. My wife and I moved to Atlanta so that she could pursue her MSW. And we knew like no one here. We knew one or two people. Hi, Aaron. Um, but we knew next to no one here. And I started going to local game stores for the first time in my life. I started going to local game stores and doing AL nights and meeting people that way. And it was kind of crazy to me because I didn't go looking for a mental health experience, right? Like I didn't go looking for that. I just wanted something to do when my wife was at night classes. But plugging into the community, having people to talk about anything with, right? Having people I could call up and be like, hey, let's go do something. Because surprise, surprise, they would oftentimes be like, yeah, maybe not a 4-hour D&D session, but like, let's play Seven Wonders for a few hours or something like that, right? I found incredibly useful in just having the supportive community. And then on top of that, as we got to know each other and speak more personally, I found myself not unique in having mental health issues, right? And I had found communities where that was true in the past, and it wasn't something I was looking for, but so I was maybe surprised to find it. But there's a lot of people in our community who care a lot. There's a lot of people in our community who have a lot of fortunate and unfortunate experiences. And when you spend 6 hours on a Saturday with someone trying to figure out puzzles and defeat the monsters and working in a collaborative group, that tends to carry over into your personal life, right? So we all like to try to tackle the monsters that exist inside our minds together, right?
Absolutely.
It's like some bizarre tour of duty. Like, I remember, that's, it's almost like a version of like, Da Nang 69. We're more like, yeah, I
Yep.
remember water deep. It's like, there was a rough summer on all of us. There was Little Dakota. Yeah, it's that's interesting you liking that, because that shared experience is also something beneficial in any kind of support for mental health, because that feeling of isolation, that feeling of being alone is very common, and feeling that and knowing and realizing it's not just me, even if it's you don't talk about the experience or you don't go into any depth, still that, okay, this isn't just me, that's
Yeah.
thinks this or feels this is very rewarding and refreshing.
Yeah, isolation is the mind killer for me. Anytime I feel like I'm alone or I'm the only person doing this or this is only happening to me, which was certainly true when I was younger. I had not yet been diagnosed with autism. I was diagnosed as an adult, so like my brain doesn't work like other people's, and I don't understand why. So clearly, I am alone in the world. um, so that plus ADHD and dyslexia and a number of other learning disabilities, right? Um, resulted in a lot of isolation feeling. So finding community, being plugged in is key, and finding people who can empathize and who care is amazing. And this community is full of those folk.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it was David Petuniak, I believe is the name. Like, isolation is one of the biggest. Like you mentioned, autism. We actually do an inclusion workshop, if you will, for like game store owners and patrons about being inclusive. And with mental health, that isolation, that's a common factor to all different, whether it's a developmental diagnoses, intellectual any of that isolation feeling of being alone within that experience is literally one of the biggest impacting factors. So working around that, and I think gaming has that unique, like, okay, we'll meet next week, and
Yeah.
just that future forward language. Gaming is helpful for people in hospital settings, people who are, long-term cancer patients, pediatric wings, for it, just that thing of, next week we're going to do this. And I say, yeah, okay, the story continues, so my story continues.
Yep.
you know yep.
There's a so in one of my friend groups, we started saying no death till brunch. We were all having a really rough week. So for those of you that aren't aware, there's this thing called COVID-19 going on, and a lot of people are isolated inside their homes. Um,
Really?
yeah, I don't know if you've heard.
Says the man with like 40 Zoom backgrounds. I haven't heard.
Um, but due to that, a lot of us were having not the best time with our mental health. But we were coming together and we were talking about it, and that was very supportive. And then we had decided to do like a brunch in a park where each of us could kind of like set up far enough away that we were social distant, and like bring our own blankets and whatnot and our own food, and then like at least physically be in a space together. Um, and so we decided to do that, and then the motto became "No death till brunch." We've we've already ordered the food. We've made plans. Like it's going to be a big waste of money if we if we die before that. Um,
Nice.
and now anytime any of us is feeling down, we just go, no death till brunch. It's like, well, we haven't scheduled another brunch. It's like, well, then we should. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So with COVID-19 and kind of that isolation aspect of everything, how do you think that the gaming community has changed with that, and how role-playing games have changed with that, and how it might have changed mental health, but it also can include more people, maybe? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yes, I could write a thesis on this. So one of the things that I do in this world is I'm a convention organizer, and I usually work with doing Adventures League for various gaming conventions. Probably most notably Dragon Con for me down here in Atlanta. I don't do it alone. I have an amazing team that I work with. But obviously this year a lot changed, right? I was no longer going to conventions. I was no longer seeing the convention family that I'd gotten used to seeing like every 1 to 6 months, right? And it was one of those things like, oh yeah, I remember last time I know Fenway, love Fenway. Last time I saw Fenway over a year ago. um, so the convention world, the dynamic has changed a lot and it's moved online, and it's certainly possible to continue to be isolated in your home and still participate. But for me, at least, it has felt like it has drawn the world closer in a lot of ways. Yes, there's a difference. I miss seeing people in person. I miss being able to sit down at a table near each other, put away screens, and pretend to be a warforged for a while. Um, but I can still sit down at my computer and play with people like Fenway or people who live in the on the all around the world. Really, at D&D Live, we were playing with guys from like Sweden. I think that was at your dad's table, Fenway.
Yeah.
um, and that has made it feel like the gaming community is much it's a small world kind of situation, right? On top of that, I've grown relationships with friends who I'd had like a couple conversations with, a couple like personal conversations. We talked vaguely about mental health, but they live in North Carolina and I live in Atlanta, or they live in Illinois and I live in Atlanta. And now I'm playing a weekly game with them and texting and or doing a call, checking in on each other's mental health multiple times a week. The friendship itself has grown a lot closer, and like in that way, COVID has um certainly changed the
Dynamic.
yeah, the dynamic, the scope. Is interesting how much closer I feel to people who live further away.
Well, we actually also, it was awesome that you mentioned Adventures League. We run a convention every year ourselves called Save Against Fear. It's our weekend long game con, and we work a lot with Amy Tzura.
Yep, love
She,
Amy.
we had a huge Adventure League contingent this year. I mean, everybody was so wonderful. I often kind of like, it's weird, I'm 48, and I went through the satanic panic of gaming, and I've been gaming for years and years and years, and so adulthood is the enemy of the gaming hobby normally, right? With one of the weird sideline benefits to all this, with I think the shift in technology and the change in technology around gaming and how we've I think that we are kind of besides like business people everybody was like freaking out about, well, we can't have meetings. How are we going to do things if we don't have meetings? Meanwhile, gamers are kind of on the side going, hold my beer, we got this, and they're kind of like come to the side and they go, yeah, so we got Roll20, we got Fantasy Grounds, we got, and there's all these platforms. And initially, I think, there's this big tendency to kind of go for this, yeah, but it's not the same. And that's an immediate tendency, because yes, there is something that might quote unquote be missed by that interpersonal, when you're right in the room. But I think one of those things you touched upon is the fact that, what, we don't know how long this is going to be. And it's very much this aspect of kind of like acceptance therapy, where you're kind of like, it may not be what I want it to be. And again, this might be my Buddha talking, but it's not what we want it to be, it's what it is. And from that, what it is, it's how much we attend to that. Because I see huge leaps just in, it never would have occurred to me to run a purely verbal game on Discord, because that's not the way my brain works. I'm a very visual person. I like seeing other people's faces, but it's brought such a wealth of opportunity, like you said, to connect with all these people, and I'm actually getting more gaming now as an adult. So people are kind of like, man, COVID sucks, not being able to game and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't have to drive places to game now. And, it's still that connection. I mean, as much as people want to deny this fact, and as much as people want to pretend like I'm an island, I don't need nobody, I'll get by this world with just me and my 2 feet. We are social animals. Our brains learn based off of our interaction with other people. Mirror neurons, a highly active center of our brain that helps us learn. So I think that adaptation is less ingenuity, and I think it's necessity. Kitty babies.
I just realized I just realized that I locked this cat in this office with me. So now it gets to be on the internet.
I like to play Settlers of Catan. Sorry, is that joke been used already? Sorry. But no, I mean, the whole thing, I think it speaks to the fact that we need that social connection. So even when one of those avenues is taken from us, we find a way to get that. I mean, let's go even back before even technology or technology, play by mail RPG. Like this would be a foreign, this is a big thing.
What is mail? I'm not familiar with
it. Exactly. But no, I think that's encouraging because, while we do have this, we still need that connection. We still need that togetherness. And I love how technology is augmenting. Like just today, we were running a training exercise and we're sitting there, we're like, yo, dude, why aren't we using this breakout rooms thing for like when the party splits? Let's really split the party. Like, and we just kind of thought like, so there's like a business application of Zoom that we're going to use now when we're co-GMing, and we're like, yeah, so now you don't have to worry about out of game knowledge or metagaming because you literally don't know what the other party finds. So I like to look at it as it's enhancing the hobby, making it more creative. But overall, I think it really seeks to, we should find more ways to connect, and that can easily spiral into other conversations about the current day's events, but we're finding ways to innovate. We're finding ways to keep that connection, which is, to me, one of the most positive aspects about all of this and how gaming has been changing.
I think for me also, and I think you touched on this, like my friend Donnie, who lives 10 minutes down the road and who would come over after work every day, is now just as close as my friend Connor, who lives in Illinois.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone's just a digital screen away.
Digital poke.
Yep.
Absolutely. So that's all the questions that I had. Is there anything else that either of you would like to touch on before we wrap up for today?
Sure. I hope that somebody out there who sees this, that's a weird way. I hope that somebody out there who sees this finds something to hang on to. In recovery, we talk a lot about our toolbox, and I'm of the opinion that you just grab whichever tool works. So just remember that you're not alone. Remember that people out there, care about you. Even if you think you've never impacted somebody else's life, I guarantee you have. Because you're not as good of a driver as you thought you did, and cutting that person off really impacted. That was so close to being heartfelt. I'm so sorry. But no, I hope somebody watching at home really feels, reach out to the people around you and know that you are cared for, and know that you are important, and know that you're not alone.
Yeah, I definitely got to, kind of jump along with you. I prefer not to jump on top of it because, to stand alone, but I definitely stand beside you, fully embracing that. We don't get through anything alone. We being alone leaves us, kind of undefended in a lot of ways from these things. I mean, again, with my own mental health, anxiety is not something that has left me. I have more taken, again, more of a Buddhist psychology as my personal, ethos, that's a part of me, that's a part of me that I have to kind of hug and bring close to me. And knowing that when it is rough, I have someone there that I can talk to. And again, one of the biggest, most astounding things about this, to be a support for someone, they don't need an answer because there isn't an answer. Mental health, mental illness, it is not cured. It is managed. It is negotiated. It is something that we learn to live with because we can't really choose not for it to live with us, if that makes sense. So it's more of just letting someone know that they're not alone and letting someone know that you are there, even if it's just you're sitting there and you're nodding and you're really listening, that feeling of not being alone is probably one of the biggest things that is a help. And I think you already said it, but just to say it again, I mean, anything that you can find, like you said, with that toolbox, having as many tools as possible. There are some tools where a screwdriver only works for so long, but that's okay. You got a hammer. And after that hammer fails you or doesn't seem useful, it's a wrench. But you know what? That hammer might be useful again the next day. So you can never tell. So whether it's board games on Tabletop Simulator, role-playing games during Zoom or whatever, that is a huge way. I mean, we've seen people get change in their overall mental health, and we've seen change in as little as 6 to 8 weeks of steady gameplay. And so, whatever it takes to get that help and that support, there's always a resource out there. And let's be resources for each other, because it's the only way we're going to get through anything. So
Absolutely. Yeah. That would be why there are a couple things that I always like to say. Two that are kind of associated with Jasper's, and one that I got from somebody who interviewed me and came up with this. So two, one is you do not have to roll initiative alone, and no one is a critical failure. And then the one that I got from someone that interviewed me is we are not gamers, we are family. And so remember that there is always someone out there that will listen to you and that wants to help you. So I hope you can listen to all of this advice that these two lovely folks have given you, and remember that. So that kind of wraps up our conversation for tonight. Thank you to everyone who watched. And a special thank you to Shawn and Jack. It was an honor to have both of you on here today. And it was my first episode of this series, so it was super exciting for me.
Hashtag first.
Yes.
I can't believe you asked me and Jack for this. What a poor choice.
Yeah, you don't know more famous people? I mean, come on. I mean, I'm trying to drive right off of Joel Hodgson's fame with my background here. I mean, come on,
Well, this show isn't about fame. It's about experience and it's about knowledge. So, I really believe that everybody has something valuable to say. So this wasn't about your fame. It was about the experience and knowledge that I knew you two had. So.
Oh no! Seriously, thank you very much. Absolutely love being on, and any point in the future, definitely. And hey, I'd love to get some credentials or whatnot from folks. Maybe we'll hook up at a game sometime. Hey.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure that eventually we'll all have to get in the game together. But can I have you two tell everyone where they can find you? We'll start with Jack this time, so Shawn started first.
Okay. So like I said, at Jack Berkenstock Jr. from the Bodhana Group, you can find us at www.thebodhanagroup.org. Bodhana is Bodhana. So it looks like Bodhana, but it's pronounced like the old Richie Valens tune, O'Donna, Bodhana. You can find me on Twitter at Bodhana Jack. You can also find the Bodhana Group on Facebook to see all kinds of updates about our local programming, our events, as well as like different, fundraising opportunities for the work that we do, support these services for families with low to no income, which is one of the things we really strive to do, is because we do believe in how valuable it is. Also, if you're a fan, I am a cast member on the Clinical Role podcast, which can be found on the Geeks Like Us network. I play Baron Valdis with that group of folks, Dr. Megan Connell and company. So that's a thrill, another place to kind of find me and to find us. So.
Absolutely. Well, another something about Clinical Role, I will be having Megan on one of my episodes for my other series coming up. So that's something to look forward to as well. And Shawn?
Yeah, my home address is can find me. You can find me on Twitter at Shawn Banerjee, or I guess Instagram, Shawn.Banerjee. You can follow me to watch my ever expanding wormwood and dice habits. And also, I update about events that are coming up that I'm helping with, or that other people are helping with, such as Jasper's Game Days International Suicide Survivors Day, coming up on November 21st. So obviously watch Jasper's social media for that, but I'll be retweeting all that as well.
Fantastic and great plug. I really appreciate that.
I mean, of course, that's what I can plug the other one too, but
Absolutely. And then I'm Fenway. You can find me on Twitter at Fenway the Teen DM, and on all of the social medias at Jasper's Game Day, where we will be updating on future events and everything that's going on with us. Or you can join our Discord. I will put the links for all of the things that we have just mentioned down in the description of the video. But thank you so much again.
thank you, Fenway.
Thank you.